This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, and our growing family of affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, Australia, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. If you'd like to give us a call, worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. We're going to be talking to Carol Roth this hour, and the question that I'm asking is losing your job a good reason to start your own company? Well, Carol's going to explain why unemployment is not a good enough a reason to go it alone. Now, this is from research from the U.S. Bureau of Statistics. It shows the number of self-employed workers rose nearly 14% from December 2009 to February 2010, from 718,000 to 908,000 workers. Now, that's 190,000 new entrepreneurs at a time when, not coincidentally, unemployment figures are hovering near 10%. It's impossible to tell how many people went from losing their jobs to starting their own businesses, but it's a trend that Carol finds troubling. And this is a quote from Carol. "Losing your job is not a good enough reason to start your own business," Carol said. Carol is a business strategist for both entrepreneurs and multinational companies. Here's another quote. "Statistics show that up to 90% of new businesses fail within a few years, many of those resulting from disenfranchised workers who dive into their own business without a clue as whether they have what it takes to succeed." Now, Carol believes that people should have an idea of whether they have the tools necessary to survive as an entrepreneur before they hang out their shingle. And she has some tips for us on how to tell if we're ready for the big time and how to stack the odds of success in our favor. Joining me now is Carol Roth. Carol, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob. I'm so excited to be here.
I've got to tell you, it seems wherever you go these days, whether it's in the United States or Canada, everybody has their own angle on making money and going into business for themselves. And I'll be very honest with you, after reading what you've sent us here, I feel vindicated, because I was feeling as if I was the only person thinking this, that guys, you're jumping in to unknown waters without knowing what the tools are that you need.
Right. It's like the dirty little secret of entrepreneurship that nobody wants to tell anyone. It's not, you look at the media, you look on the covers of magazines, they talk about entrepreneurship, and it's the holy grail, and nobody talks about all the companies who are not only failing, but failing to succeed.
Well, this is where you come in, my friend. Over the next hour, Carol will be sharing the nitty-gritty, the good, the bad, the ugly of going into business alone and to become an entrepreneur. 1-800-610-7035 is our toll-free number, and if you'd like to visit Carol's website, it is www.carolroth.com. That's www.carolroth.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break discussing going into business for yourself, what you need to do, what to look out for, and if you actually have, and please don't take me wrong, if you have the smarts to do it. We'll be back. Don't go away.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Carol Roth is with me this hour, Exonation. And I'm going to ask Carol a few questions in your best interest, Exonation. So if you're a little ticked off, don't get ticked off at anyone else but yours truly. 1-800-610-7035 is worldwide toll-free. That's our telephone number here in the Exo. Carol, can anyone be an entrepreneur?
That's an interesting question, Rob. The short answer is yes, anybody can, but the better question is, should they? And will you be successful, and have you stacked the odds in your favor, and is it the best option given your circumstances, your goals, and opportunities? Anyone can be a professional singer, and anyone can try to be a doctor or an athlete, but not everyone's going to succeed in those paths. I think you'd agree with me, right?
I certainly do. So what should people who want to be entrepreneurs include in their self-checklist before they even venture out to the conceptual point of becoming an entrepreneur?
Sure. Well, I think that there are a couple of things that entrepreneurs really need to think about. The first is, are they being motivated by the right reasons? And a lot of that has to do with understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur. And there are a whole bunch of myths out there, from I get to be in control and be my own boss, to I really love doing something and I want to do more of that are driving the mindset of a lot of entrepreneurs, instead of having the business come about from a customer want or need. So that's sort of the first thing, is they have to just kind of look at what's driving them. And then they really need to look down at themselves and say, have I done everything here to stack the odds in my favor? If you look kind of at any point in time, not everybody's going to have done everything that they need. And some of these issues are dynamic. If you look at timing, things like your finances, do you have enough money to not only start the business, but maintain it for a couple of years to give it a chance to really get its legs under it, and then also live on it at the same time? That's something that's a situation that you might not have that today, but if your goal is to really open a business in the future, you can change that circumstance. There are things that are absolutely not changing, though, like your personality. I always say my quick and dirty test is, are you Santa or are you an elf? Right? Santa has the vision for Christmas, and the elf sort of executes everything, and they're both necessary to make Christmas happen, but each has its own sort of vision. So if you're the type of person who requires a lot of direction and not someone who really takes the ball and is going to run with it, then you're probably not going to change that at any point in time.
Statistically speaking, Carol, how many new entrepreneurial businesses fail each and every year?
The statistics are very interesting. There are a whole bunch of different statistics, and depending on, how you slice and dice them, it's definitely the majority. And, I see many, many sources that quote up to 90% of businesses failing within a several-year period of their inception. And I think that not only do you need to look at the failure, Rob, but you also have to look at, are the ones that survive succeeding? Because if you look at the statistics of businesses that actually make it, 60% of those existing businesses don't earn a profit over their lifetime. And there are millions of people who are actually working more hours for less pay in their own businesses than they would if they were working for somebody else in a job.
Now that's an interesting scenario. And how many people going into business or becoming entrepreneurs actually sit down and think about all these points before they tell the boss to take their job and shove it?
Unfortunately, it's a tiny, tiny fraction. And part of the issue is that it goes back to the fact that there's no screening process for entrepreneurship. I mean, if you think of any other high-risk, high-reward career path, and I'll go back to some of my previous examples, whether it be an athlete or a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, or a fireman, there's a screening process. And that process is great on both sides. One, it lets you test it out to say, is this something I really want to commit to for the rest of my life before going, with both feet, taking the leap. And it also weeds out the people who aren't a good fit for it. If you want to be a doctor and you do your internship and you throw up at the sight of blood, guess what? Probably not for you. And so that doesn't happen with entrepreneurship. Anybody who has some money together can go ahead and make a go of it. And so entrepreneurs are always optimistic. They always have the rose-colored glasses. So they jump in, and since there is no bona fide screening process, they don't take the time to say, again, is it the right time? Is it the right opportunity? And, do the risks make sense? Am I trading my salary and my investment at the chance to make something that's barely more than what I'm making at a job? And that's a bad trade, but nobody does, as I say, nobody does the math before they go down the entrepreneurial path.
Plus, they also have to consider their family. If they're a mom or a dad and there's little ones at home, this should weigh very heavily in their decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've putting together something called the entrepreneur equation to balance the risks and rewards. And one of those things is there's an R in there called responsibilities. And you can't make two things your number one priority. So either your family is your priority or your business is your priority. And if you have a little kid that might want to go to college one day that you need to fund it, or maybe you just want to spend time with your family, those kinds of things really need to factor into your equation because they're stakeholders and they're going along for the ride. And that's another one of those things we talked about. Do you have what it takes to start a business? Is the timing right? Well, responsibilities are dynamic. Obviously, that changes over time. So it may not be a great time for your family today, but perhaps when your kids get a little bit older and you've also done some other things to stack the odds in your favor, not only with your finances, but gaining some relevant experience, then you might be in a better position to go ahead and pursue that entrepreneurial dream.
I wonder how many conversations tonight at supper time in the United States or Canada or anywhere else around the world this show was heard start off like this. Well, honey, how was your day at work? Well, I've got to tell you something, honey. It was so bad, but you're going to be so proud of me. I quit my job and I'm going into business for myself.
Yes, and then you hear, ah!
That's right.
the appropriate response to that, right?
Shouldn't this be, if a person who is planning on making the jump from employee to entrepreneur, shouldn't they speak it over with their better half before they make the jump?
I always think it's a good idea if it's
too.
a real stakeholder. If it's a fake stakeholder, there are people, who have parents that really wish that, they were lawyers instead of, Janny King franchisees. That's not a real stakeholder. But if you have somebody who you're in a partnership with or you have a child that you're caring for, those are people who are bona fide stakeholders. And the decisions that you make, not only in terms of giving up your salary, but the investment of capital that you need to make or any loans that you may take on to finance your business, that's going to affect them as well. So it is really important to include them in the conversation and make sure it's a good time for everyone involved. Otherwise, not only are you going to have the headache of a business, but you're going to have the headache of an unhappy family too.
I've seen friends of mine who got involved with an organization, and I'm not going to mention Amway's name here.
No, you wouldn't want to do that.
No, of course not. Because they actually thought that they could make one heck of a living selling their products.
Right.
And I think within 3 months they realized it was a dream that they just could not fulfill.
Yeah, I have something that I call the job to business scale. And the word business is one of those words that is completely overused and misused, kind of like the word entrepreneur. And it's used to describe a whole bunch of activities. So on my scale, I start out with something that I call a jobby, which is basically a hobby disguised as a job or a business. Mm-hmm. And that's something where you're making some money on the side, but you're not really making the minimum wage on an hourly basis for the amount of time that you're spending doing it. And it's never really going to evolve into something in its current form. It's just something that you're doing more for fun or to avoid going back and getting a job. Then you move along to what I call a job business. And in the U.S. alone, there are 21 million people that have one-person organizations where basically they are the business. So, Rob, if they get hit by a bus, their company ceases to exist anymore. And in that case, they're really trading their salary plus their investment for another salary. I mean, they are making a job for themselves because, again, if they go out of the equation, the job doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And that's a really sort of tough position to be in terms of risk and reward. And then you have the end of the scale, which is a bona fide business, which is an entity that actually has value into itself. So any one person could get hit by a bus, and the organization still thrives. If you think of, Walmart, the largest retailer in the United States, I mean, the CEO could get hit by a bus. You could have something happen to one of the cashiers, the marketing director. Any person in that organization is not going to bring down Walmart. Walmart's still going to have value at the end of the day. And really, when you're thinking about starting a business, the goal is to create value so that you have a reward that justifies all the risks that you're taking on. If you're just looking for a job, there has to be a whole bunch of qualitative rewards that you're trading off in order for that risk-reward to balance out.
You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour, Carol. Please stand by. Exo Nation, Carol Roth is our very special guest. www.carolroth.com. And we'll come back on the other side of this break talking about entrepreneurship. Do you have what it takes to start your own business? Should you go into business for yourself, or should you just stay where you are and reap the rewards? We'll be back on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
It was a terrifying experience.
I thought we was going to go to jail for murder.
That day, we were a little behind, so we worked until it was starting to get dark.
We loaded up the equipment and hadn't driven very far when we caught glimmers of this glow coming through the trees. I urged Mike to hurry up and get up there.
Travis had the door open before we even stopped. As he got closer, I heard the sound.
One of the guys said, "You feel that?"
I really panicked then.
I told him, "Get the hell out of here."
It didn't come directly to me, it came to a deputy sheriff.
Three of us volunteered right away to tell him what had happened.
Sheriff Gillespie definitely didn't believe it.
He says that we better be certain because we can get in a lot of trouble.
When we went to search the next day, they split us up, and the whole time the deputies asked me, if you just tell us where the body is, we can all go home and get this over with.
We're talking about 100 people combing through the wooded area. Nothing turns up.
All week long, I've been hearing they're going to set it up to make you guys look guilty.
We're a rough-looking bunch then. Some of us have been in trouble with the law before.
And y'all ain't never going to come out of that jailhouse.
We couldn't get out.
I tried to sneak out the back door the day of the polygraph test. I was scared to death.
On top of that, you have media.
I literally would be on 2 telephones at the same time.
We've even got some coops in here now that's coming in and out to see the freak show, as they call it.
Everyone descends.
I just wasn't going to stand there and listen to it anymore.
Granny says, "This is Travis. I'm back. I need help." When I did hear that he had been returned, it was almost as unbelievable as the original thing.
I just looked at my mom and says, "I told you we didn't kill him."
Travis Walton reappeared after several days with a bizarre story about a ride in an unidentified flying object.
People were desperate to explain it away.
Why are you sticking up for Travis for all this time? You know this really didn't happen.
What happened to Travis after we took off in that truck, I can't tell you.
I hated Travis for a long time after this. My whole world just tore up.
But I believe every word Travis said about it. He's never lied to me about nothing.
It's a net negative. We lost our jobs in the immediate aftermath.
And now you're not able to talk about it with anyone because you know that they're going to laugh at you, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
But if you don't come out and tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you.
There's a degree of responsibility. Certainly I have to accept the bad. If I can direct what's happened in a way that I can make something good happen in the world, I'm looking for it.
Order your copy of Travis, The True Story of Travis Walton, today at www.traviswaltonthemovie.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Carol Roth is my special guest this hour on the X-Zone, everyone. Her website is www.carolroth.com. And my question to Carol was, is losing your job a good reason to start your own company? And Carol, is it?
It's actually a horrible reason to start your own company if that is the only reason you're using to start a business. I find that businesses that really succeed are ones, particularly in this competitive environment. I mean, if you think about it, we've got everything that we possibly could want and need and a whole bunch of stuff that we really don't want and need. Mm-hmm. And so if you're really going to be successful in business, you have to solve a customer need. You have to find a pain point or a want and be able to solve that for a customer. And you have to be personally in a position to be the best person to do that. So if you're doing it based on your personal situation, that doesn't really jive up with a customer focus. It's very me-centric. Oh, I ended up in a bad situation, rather than having the business be driven from the customer perspective. Plus, you probably haven't done all those things you need to do to really stack the odds in your favor to make the business work. So I think that really creates a perfect storm of potential failure.
How important is it for someone who wants to become an entrepreneur or open up his own business to have a business plan?
Well, the statistics say that it's very important. Folks that have business plans, their businesses succeed at a much higher rate than folks that don't have business plans. And it doesn't have to be really anything fancy. I think the goal is to really just go through the exercise to make sure that you have a viable business model. It's one thing to be really passionate about an idea, and it's an entirely different thing to be able to make money from that idea. And the example that I always like to use, when I first got out of college and was working in a major investment bank in San Francisco, California, it was sort of the internet bubble time. And there was a company called Cosmo.com. And Cosmo was this place that you could call up, and within a few minutes, they would deliver to you snacks or movies or, whatever you want, little sundry items. So basically, when we were working in the office at 2 o'clock in the morning, we'd have them deliver Ben & Jerry's ice cream to us. Seems logical, right?
It does.
And they were backed by Starbucks. I mean, they had major backing. The problem was that they started off and they said, okay, you can order anything you want and there's no minimum. So what did we do? We ordered $3 tub of ice cream. Well, pretty soon they realized that the economics of selling, one $3 tub of ice cream, with some guys delivering it to you on a scooter on a one-off basis wasn't going to make them very much money. And then they migrated it and said, okay, well, now you need to have a minimum order for at least, call it $10 or whatever a time. So less people were interested when they started doing that, and then they started putting a delivery fee on it. So by the time they actually came up with something that they could make money from, the customers were no longer interested. It was great when it was free, and as they started putting these other rules and regulations on it, customers weren't interested, but there was no business model if it's free. So just because you have an idea doesn't mean you can make money out of it, and that's why you have to go through the business planning process.
What are the biggest myths about business ownership and entrepreneurs?
Wow, do we have 3 days to cover this?
We can do it in 2. How's that?
So many, Rob. I think that the first one is the main myth is that if you're good at making something, so whether it's jewelry or chocolate chip cookies or model cars, or good at providing a service, like a graphic designer, that you're going to be good at running a business that does that. And that dovetails into what is it that an entrepreneur does. And I think that a lot of people think an entrepreneur does, a lot of what they love to do. But the reality is that when you run a business, your job is to run a business. So you're spending less time, making cookies or jewelry or doing graphic design, and a whole lot of time wearing all kinds of other hats.
Yep.
And that could range from accounting to marketing to, going out and networking, if you have employees, managing the employees. And the amount of time that you actually get to spend doing that thing that you are really interested in is significantly minimized. So you're an entrepreneur yourself. Would you agree with me on that?
I agree with you 100% on that. And I see it every day that I do this show. People, I'll give you the example. Self-publishing books.
Yes.
Because, it's great to come up with the book. It's, you've got the print-on-demand companies. You can put it on Amazon.com. You can put it on Barnes & Noble. But you have to market it.
Yes.
And this is where I would say 95% of all self-published authors fail. They have no concept of marketing. And you can have the best product in the world, but unless you market it in the right way, no one's going to know about it.
Absolutely. And particularly in the early stages, whether it's of self-publishing or running some other kinds of business, when you don't have a lot of resources, all of that falls on you to do. And so either you have to outsource it, which still doesn't abdicate you of the responsibility. You still have to oversee it because your name's on the dotted line. But that costs money. Or you do it yourself, which takes time. And that's less and less time of doing what you love and a whole bunch of time doing a bunch of things that you really wish you never had to do. I cannot tell you how many entrepreneurs tell me that accounting and doing the books is the absolute thing that makes their head spin. And even if they have an accountant, they still have to spend the time going through the numbers to make sure the accountant's doing it right and nobody's embezzling from them.
Well, you see, what we do is we use QuickBooks. We do the data entry ourselves. We, every month, send the file over electronically to our accountant, and he takes it from there. But, we have to do it. We oversee it. And there's not one operation within the entire company that I do not oversee personally.
Absolutely, because, if something goes wrong, it's your name on the bottom line, and you're the one that suffers the consequences. So I really think that that's absolutely the biggest couple of myths. Now, another one that I really love is that you get to be in control, or you get to be the boss. That's my favorite one. So, if you're working at a company, a normal company, you probably have like a half a dozen to a dozen people who might have control over things like, how you get paid, who you work with, what you do on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. So tell them, Rob, how many people do you have who are in control of your destiny when you have your own company?
One. Yourself.
Well, I would actually argue that you have millions. You have all customers and potential customers.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. I didn't look at it that way.
So these are all the people who are in control, who each have their own agenda, mm-hmm. and each one of those gets to set and tell you, what you get to do, and if you get paid, and if you get fired, and all those good things. And then if you have investors, or if you run a franchise and you have a franchise parent company, or if you have a retail store and you have a landlord, guess what? You're working for all of those people too. So the reality is, I think you actually have a lot less control if you're running your own business than if you're working for someone else, just by the sheer volume of people that you have to report to.
Tell me, Carol, is this a good time to start a business given the current economy?
It's interesting. I look at starting a business as an investment. It's an investment of your time, your money, and effort. And I kind of look at it, like any other investment, that you're never going to be able to time the cycle perfectly. You're never going to be able to absolutely, buy at the lowest point and sell at the highest point. And so I don't try and advise people to time the market. When there's a bad economy, there are certain things that are definitely out of favor. Your potential customers have less money. You may have less money to be able to invest in the business. But there are also other opportunities, such as service providers mm-hmm. that may have never considered working with you in the past, who will now work with you because their businesses are slower. Or if you're going to have a retail store, you might be able to negotiate a more favorable lease. And then on the flip side, when the economy is good, obviously customers are more flush with cash then, and you may have more opportunities in terms of marketing. But then at the same time, too, you have more competition, and you may have a harder time getting great payment terms with your vendors. So I think that as long as your customer pain point still exists in the bad economy, that the state of the economy shouldn't really dictate whether or not you start a business, because there are pros and cons either way.
All right, so if you've got a couple of people who have their fingers on the pulse of the entrepreneurial business and ownership of their own business, and they've got a bit of business smarts, why do so many businesses fail?
Well, I think that a lot of times, not only do they not understand what the business means, but they haven't differentiated their business. If you think about a company like McDonald's, mm-hmm. McDonald's, if I asked you what McDonald's does, or I asked the person on the street, they're going to tell me that McDonald's sells hamburgers. Well, McDonald's does, technically they sell hamburgers, but they do a lot more. They sell value, they sell convenience, because they're just about everywhere, at least they are by me, and they sell consistency. And yes. You can go pretty much anywhere in the world and you're getting the same product. So there's this extra something that they're selling. And so I think a lot of times that the businesses don't really differentiate themselves. They don't define what it is, what's that extra, I always call it the special sauce that they're selling. So I think that is definitely another reason. A lot of times they're just not fully committed. They haven't, whether it's, financially given themselves enough runway, or emotionally really set themselves up that they're going to go through the highs and lows, that they're not really committed to doing this. And that goes back to the whole screening process. And then again, they do things where they jump into it without stacking all the odds in their favor. I have so many people who come to me who want to start restaurants, who have never worked in a restaurant one day in their life. And I say, well, what makes you want to start a restaurant? Oh, well, I love food. I love eating. I go to restaurants all the time. And it's, well, that's nice, but eating in a restaurant and running a restaurant are two totally different things. Why don't you take a few months and go work in a restaurant and see if you even like it? See if you're any good at it. See if you can get yourself promoted in somebody else's restaurant before you go spend a couple $100,000 opening your own. And, that never occurs to some people. And for other people, they say, oh, well, I went to MBA school or I've done this job. I don't need to do that. And their ego gets in the way rather than taking the time and the opportunity to say, wow, if I'm going to invest a lot of my own capital, I really want to make sure that I have the experience, that I've done these things that are going to give me the best chance to succeed. And so I think the whole just jumping in without really evaluating if it's the right opportunity for you and doing all the things you can to stack the odds in your favor really causes the failure or the failure to succeed, as I say.
Is there a lot of venture capital out there for people who want to become entrepreneurs and open up their own business?
Well, the funny thing is that venture capitalists actually fund like a fraction of a percent of all new businesses. So most businesses aren't even appropriate for venture capital. Venture capitalists look for businesses that are going to get to like 50 to 100 million in revenue within a 3 to 5 year period. And most businesses aren't going to be able to do that unless they're in high technology or they have a huge rollout plan for, a retail store. I mean, there are very few businesses that really meet that criteria. So the interesting thing is that most entrepreneurs finance their businesses themselves and also finance it not only with their savings, but sometimes with their personal credit cards. And again, I think that's the whole preparing yourself from a financial standpoint. That's why a lot of people kind of go in at the wrong time because they haven't put away enough money to live on for the couple of years and then to also support the business for a couple of years because it is very hard to get capital for your business. And then they end up having to cut bait before they've given the business an opportunity to get some legs underneath it.
And then if they do use their own credit cards for capital, the company goes under. Even if the company is incorporated because they've invested their own money, they're not protected by the corporate shield and they're stuck with the bill.
Absolutely. And even if you go to something like a loan from a bank, banks don't give out free money. I think there was a memo somewhere along the way that in the United States, they think it's the government, and in other places, they think the banks give free money to entrepreneurs. And that's not the case. The banks aren't stupid. So a lot of times you'll have to sign something called a personal guarantee, which is pretty much exactly like it sounds, that, if everything goes under, guess what? You are personally on the hook. And you have to, sign, whether it's a mortgage to your house or some other big asset that you have, as collateral to be able to stand behind that personal guarantee. And so that's why going through this whole exercise of saying, are the rewards justified by the risk? If you have to invest your own money or you have a personal guarantee on your house, and you're giving up your salary, boy, you better be able to make a whole lot of money potentially at the end of the day for that trade-off to be worth it. And for so many people, it's not. For so many people, they're trading a $40,000 salary for the chance to maybe make $45,000 or $50,000 with so much risk on the back end.
That in my book is not good business sense at all. You and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back on the other side as we do our wrap-up for tonight for Wednesday, March 31st in the year 2010, right here in
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. Carol Roth is my guest of this hour, but I'd like to take this, this opportunity of thanking all our guests tonight. We had a great time. Elizabeth Joyce joined us in hour number 1. We talked to Dr. James Kroll in hour number 2 about the psi phenomenon. Dr. Gillian Holloway in hour number 3 about dream analysis. And this hour, once again, Carol Roth has been with us talking to us about the difference between entrepreneurship, owning your own business or doing the smart thing and staying where you are, because there's so much work when it comes to having your own business, being an entrepreneur. It's not an easy task. You need to have some basic business knowledge. You're going to have to do accounting. You're going to have to get financial statements. You're going to have to get money in order to keep the operation running. You're going to need staff. You're going to need to keep up to date on every new legislation that affects your business. You'll need a lawyer. You need an accountant. So please, before you decide to go into business for yourself, talk to somebody like Carol, get her advice, get into a mentor system. And if, like Carol said, if you want to open up a restaurant but you've never worked in a restaurant, for goodness sake, see what you're getting into before you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and appear with Chef Ramsay, with him chewing you up one side and spitting you out the other like he does every week on TV, with people who open restaurants and don't know what the heck they're doing.
Well, what's funny about that, Rob, is that actually Chef Ramsay is in tons of financial trouble right now because he overexpanded his restaurant and he actually went into receivership. So, even the people who are the best in the world is going to affect them too.
Carol, what would you like to leave our listeners with? We've got about 60 seconds.
I think that if you're thinking about starting a business, shift your focus from the question, can I be an entrepreneur, to should I be an entrepreneur? And really look at your personal circumstances, your goals, your objectives, and the opportunity, and say, are there enough rewards to justify the risk for me? If you really just want to do something that you love, you get a hobby. That doesn't have any work associated with it. That's fun. But if you really want to start a business, make sure you do that math before you go down the entrepreneurial path so that you have stacked the odds in your favor.
Carol Roth has been our guest this hour. Carol, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and I'd love to have you back on this show in the future.
I would love to do so, and thank you so much. It's been so much fun for me, and really appreciate the time talking to you.
It's been great talking to you too, Carol. Thanks very much for joining us. Carol Roth has been my guest this hour. Exonation, www.carolroth.com. Well, that's it. Another day has closed here in the X Zone. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all my guests. Thank you, each and every one of you out there in the X Zone Nation around the world, for allowing us to be part of your day, your night, no matter where you are on this great big earth of ours. To all our affiliates, satellite providers, cable providers, and my staff here in Hamilton, thank you guys. It's been great working with you. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. But until then, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.